landlords get a bad name, don't they? So this is much better than commuting between Manchester and Crewe every day. I may as well sit in the sun, tax free. The kids' version of Monopoly. So I'm trying to apply very simple things to them there. I have got a wry smile on my face because I'm a little bit on the fence on the conspiracy theory.
On this week's episode of The Engaging Marketeer, I am speaking with Steve Cowgill, who lives in the Middle East and helps people invest in UK property. So he teaches expats living in the Middle East investment into the UK because, as Steve describes it, the UK is a great place to invest, but not necessarily a great place to live. Let's find out how Steve got into that, how he does, and how he's actually got 14 different streams of property income. So, Steve, you're helping people invest in property. Mm-hmm. What first got you interested in doing that?
Great first question. So I think I've always, like most people, understood that property investing makes sense. And when I became an expat and in this part of the world in the Middle East, that generally comes with a higher disposable income. So I did what any logical person would do, save some money, invest in a property, and just go with a bit of naivety, really. And because the world says that property investing is a good idea, so invest in bricks and mortar. So that's really where it started, quite naively, listening to the masses and just invested, really.
Well, you say that's what most people would do with a higher income. A lot of people will squander it.
You make a very good point there. And this is something that I am becoming more and more acutely aware is that with an increased disposable income becomes increased distraction, especially in this part of the world where you've got fast cash type environments, especially in places like Dubai. You've got expensive brunches, exotic holiday locations, and just a luxury lifestyle that people generally look at. I remember listening to a stat once that said that 60% of UK expats go back to the UK in a worse financial situation than when they arrived.
Really?
Which shouldn't be the aim of becoming an expat. Surely it's there to have a good lifestyle, yes, but also create that stability for the future. So yeah, I'm contradicting myself a little bit there, but yeah, that's generally my feeling though.
I mean, it's seen to almost an extreme degree in the UK over the years with footballers. Most footballers throughout the 80s and 90s would get loads of money. They'd live fast. They'd have expensive cars, expensive houses, expensive lifestyles. They'd gamble a lot, even though they weren't meant to, and they'd end up skint. So the really famous players from the 80s now are having to work because it's all gone. It's only the handful of players like Robbie Fowler and Steve McManaman of Liverpool who famously invested in a load of property around Liverpool. So they don't have to do anything now. They still do, but they don't have to. And it's also common in business that the more you earn as an employee, the more you spend. You live to your means. If you get a bonus, you spend it. If you get a pay rise, you spend it, which means your money can never go back down again because your income your outgoings have gone up to that. So it's a different mindset, isn't it, to actually invest in assets that generate revenue.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you were talking about the famous people there, I always think of Mike Tyson and all the millions that he squandered.
Yeah.
And I think sort of there's two things going through my mind when you were talking there. One, I don't think social media helps these days because people only portray the good things that happen in social media. So I'm at a brunch, I'm on holiday, I'm at this nice car, I've got this nice piece of clothing, etc. And it doesn't sort of promote a long-term view of financial security. So I think people just pursue that lifestyle. So that's one thing. And then I suppose the other thing is when they're seeing footballers in these fast cars and nice environments, etc. And the 80s and 90s probably didn't have that sort of education around future wealth creation, etc. I think, I'm just hearing this from media, but I think there's probably more education about youngsters who earn lots of money at an early age. I think of people like Wayne Rooney who earn like ridiculous amounts of money when they were 16, 17 years old. He seems to have done okay, but he's probably amongst the minority of these famous footballers who earn lots of money at a young age. And I think it's probably true, I'm finding, in just we'll call it the layman, the everyday person as well, who they're not taught to think about the future. And I speak with a few people here who are very keen to get that type of education into schools and just understanding simple things like what's a profit and loss, what's a credit report, what does a mortgage statement look like, these things aren't taught to people at a young age, and I think it's just the fast life that is portrayed in social media now, that it just seems like the not normality, but the boring, should we say, the boring approach to slow and steady is what will help create financial financial security for people in the future.
I mean, Mike Tyson is a real extreme example, isn't it? Because he earned hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds or dollars, and then the whole lot was gone. But a huge reason for that was because of who he surrounded himself with. Mike Tyson had hangers-on, people that weren't his friends. They didn't care about him. All they cared about was there's this guy here that's got more money than he knows what to do with. We're going to have a fantastic time if we stay close to him. And once it's gone, they left. It's who you surround yourself with and who you take advice from. And there's a lot of people in the world that, whether they've got money or not, they're taking advice from people who they shouldn't. So you'll always get that guy in the pub that tells you, oh yeah, don't start a business because you're going to go bust. Get yourself a job, get yourself a 9-to-5 and you're going to be all right that way. Don't go invest in property because what if it goes wrong? It's going to be headaches. You're going to lose a load of money. People very rarely take advice from those who they should be taking advice from. So you've obviously done that the right way, and you've taken advice from people you should be taking advice from. So where did that start, and who did you turn to?
Let me position this. I've always been someone who has been, like, should we call it, a lifelong student. So I've always been interested and, I suppose, pursued reason behind every decision. So I'm a logical person. I like to understand the detail. I ask lots of questions about lots of things just because I want to understand where it comes from. So I've always had that disposition of wanting to learn. Just touching on the first property I bought, it was successful, but it wasn't ridiculously successful. It covered the mortgage. And I was looking around just because of the nature of the person I am. And I was thinking, why are all these people buying more properties more profitably on a more frequent basis to me? And I just went into research and then just came across sort of different sort of mindset people, coaches, personal development coaches, and property educators. And so I just did my research essentially and talked to a few people, got a few reference checks. Like, obviously, you don't want to be believing what is being put in front of you because it's a sales tool that they're trying to sell their services, which is how they make money and how they attract their clients. So I just spoke to a few people and I invested in that knowledge really, and I tried to, as you say, surround myself with people who are doing it themselves and just try and connect with them and try and network. I'm not a natural networker. I'm not a natural. I'm quite sort of introverted. So but I do understand that you if you push yourself past the sort of comfort zone, then that's where the real sort of development and growth comes. So I did that, and I just started speaking to more and more people that were doing these sort of things. And the theme that came out was, you mentioned it there, and there's different variations of this. You are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. If you're the biggest fish in the pond, you're in the wrong pond. All those sort of nice sound bites. But the reality is that if you surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do and are successful, then the chances are you're going to be successful. And it's not just about wealth. If you surround yourself with people who go drinking every weekend, chances are you're going to go drinking every weekend. If you surround yourself with people who smoke, when you're at school, all your friends smoke, so you just smoke because that's the people you're around. So it just became quite apparent to me that being around people who talk about these things and who have been successful, one, provides a learning environment for you, but secondly provides like the motivation, inspiration of what's being done. And I think success leaves clues, and there's no real point in trying to reinvent the wheel. If it works for other people, then just do what successful people do, and that's sort of what I've been pursuing ever since, really.
I believe there's loads of property trainers out there. There's loads of property experts, gurus, speakers, and courses. So you say you did your research. I believe it was Simon Zucci.
Yes.
You went with in the end.
Yes.
What made you pick Simon as opposed to one of the many other people that offer the world?
Yeah, as much as I said I did my research, and I think I did, once you're in the environment of property education, all of the gurus come out and all of the people, it must be the algorithms on the social media. There's so many trainers in there. So I think indirectly I was probably, I benefited from not having all those gurus because I think I would have been distracted. I think what came out for me with Simon was, one, he'd been doing it a long time. 2, he wasn't as sensational as some other property trainers. And I think that's just a personal preference. Some people like that razzmatazz and should we say aggression or sensationalism. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's just some people are. But I think just a few people that I spoke to that had done Simon's course just gave me the confidence, both in terms of their feedback, but also the type of person they came across as in terms of sort of family orientated, not sensational, trying to build things slow and steady, not trying to be too risky. And I just made my assessment based on that. Now, as I say, since I completed Simon's training, I've come across some other fantastic training providers in there. Equally, I've come across some, should we say, less successful or less less credible trainers, should we say? I think the danger is always that someone does a property course and suddenly they market themselves as a guru. And I think that's the danger that, and it's not just property educators. I think it's anyone, crypto trainers, stock trainers, whatever it might be. I think you have to do your diligence. But yeah, they were the reasons. I liked Simon's approach. He'd been in the game a long time, and the people that spoke to were sort of my type of people, and they were very complimentary about it. So that was the sort of research I was basing my decision on.
The criteria I've always looked at is if you're looking for someone to help you with something as a trainer, there's three things to look at. And that's one, have they done what you want to do? Are they still doing it? And do you like them?
That last one's important.
It is important because there's as you said, there's trainers out there who are quite sensationalist. We all know who they are.
Yeah.
That doesn't sit with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like that attitude, that bravado. And as you say, Simon's more family orientated, he's more modest, he's quieter, and the way he does things is more in keeping with the way you want to operate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think it's worth pointing out, actually, that the sensationalism is not right or wrong. And some people like that fast and loose approach. And some people will be successful doing that. Some people won't. So, like you say, I think you're right. They have to be credible. They have to be doing what they're trying to teach and been successful doing it. But at the end of the day, you need to like the person, don't you?
You do. And you said you bought property before you started working with Simon. Mm-hmm. What changed in terms of your approach after you worked with Simon?
I suppose the mindset of being an investor versus being a homeowner. I think, and this probably stems from the old-fashioned view of debt. As a homeowner, you get a prepayment mortgage usually, and we're all taught that debt is bad and you need to pay that debt off as much as possible.
Yeah.
Whereas an investor mindset is that, well, debt can be good as long as it's used in the right way and as long as you're looking at the long term. So I made all the investor mistakes when I started. So I found an area I liked. I found a property that needed no work doing to it. I got a repayment mortgage so I could pay it off as soon as possible. And I just said to the letting agent, you go and find me the right tenants without challenging what type of tenant, what sort of rent I could get, how long will it be let for. And we did all that. And the mindset at the time was, as long as they're covering the mortgage payments, then I'll just keep this for forever and a day, and the capital appreciation will kick in. And I was quite fortunate. It did rent quite easily. Rent continued to go up. But what I was finding looking back was some months I was making no profit. It was costing me money because you have to repair a fridge or a handle or someone to move out and you've got a month where there's no one in there. So, but because I had a good disposable income, it didn't really dent us any much. But once I had the education and this mindset around good debt and bad debt, and one of the first books I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad, which a lot of people do. Yeah. And that sort of flipped a switch as well around what can we do here. And then just trying to find the right tenant type, switching to an interest-only mortgage after the first 2 years was up. It just became more profitable and just releasing more income. And since then, we've just had the right relationship with the agents. We get the right tenants in. And touch wood, we've never really had much more than a new cooker to replace things like that, just making it do there. So, yeah, home ownership versus investor mindset is probably the main thing that came across there.
That comes back to something you said earlier as well about schools, that this isn't taught in schools, mortgages isn't taught in schools, debt isn't taught in schools, credit isn't taught in schools. So most people think that all debt is bad debt. There was a guy that used to work for us here, lovely guy, very intelligent, hugely intelligent, but he didn't have a credit card. And he was in his 30s and had never had a credit card. because he thought that a credit card was for something you couldn't afford. And it was better to save up and pay for something rather than have a credit card. Consequently, his credit score wasn't particularly good because he'd never demonstrated that he could handle debt quickly. How do you think that needs to change in schools so that people come out of school with that education? Or, if we're going conspiracy theorist, as one of the property mentors talks about all the time, is it deliberate that people in school are not taught this because the institution, the banks, want them to come out and get into bad debt?
Yeah, I have got a wry smile on my face because I'm a little bit on the fence on the conspiracy theory. I know a lot of teachers, and it's very repetitive. There's an image in my head that I can think of, and I can't think where it comes from, about this conveyor belt approach. They go in at the early age, just go along conveyor belt. They get something applied to them every year as they go through their school life, and they get kicked out at 16 or 18 years old, depending on which sort of education system you're in. They're then taught to go and get their degree. They're then taught to go and get promoted, get married, have children, buy a car, buy a house, and the debt accumulates. So that's the image I've got in my head. But in terms of education, I just think the education system, particularly in the UK, is just so archaic and resistant to change that it doesn't introduce those things. I think in places like Dubai, some institutions are bringing sort of extracurricular, paid for, I might add, education around this. So it is happening, and you can buy these things online. You can do online training. So I think it's just an education system that's just very archaic. Now I know in more recent times you have like the MVQ type approach, but that's more for people that are maybe not as academic but more vocational and can get into more skills-based thing. But that doesn't include financial management, from what I understand. It's more like trades type approach, or more practical skills. So I think that then leads to why there's a conspiracy theory. So, well, why aren't you changing? You can change everything else. Then there must be something in there. And I'm sure in some dark corridor of Whitehall, wherever it is, it makes sense to keep the masses suppressed, if that's the right term to use, because otherwise the government won't be able to control what is essentially is it word capitalist state? Is that the right word to use? Have I got that right?
Capitalist state, yeah.
No, I'm not sure, but I like I say, I want to keep the seat post firmly up my backside in terms of conspiracy theorists, but I can see both sides of the argument. I think there's not really the entrepreneurial spirit that there used to be in the UK, and the exposure I get to the Middle East, particularly in a place like Dubai, is that it's very much open to entrepreneurs. And I think that's why you see these extracurricular activities within, maybe not sort of school age people, but certainly young adults coming into colleges where they're exposed to more financial literacy, should we say?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm being very conservative in my views there, but because I've not really got a strong opinion one on the left or the right there.
Well, there's two things that popped into my mind when you were saying that. Then it's the first one, and I've got to be careful how I say this because you say you know a lot of teachers. Are teachers the best people to be teaching money management and entrepreneurship when they, for the best will in the world, are selling their time for money at a relatively low rate, and they're selling a lot of time? Because I know we take the piss out of teachers in the UK. Oh, they get 6 weeks off for the summer, they get loads off for Christmas. I know they work well into the evening doing marking that isn't paid for. I know they work long hours. So are they the best people to be teaching this? And then the other angle is, I genuinely think that they don't want people to learn this, because if everybody came out of school knowing that if you put your money in the bank, you're getting 1%, 1.5% interest on your savings, which is way, way below the rate of inflation. So after 10 years, your money's worth far less than it was when you first put it in. So we shouldn't do that. And if everybody cottoned on to that, and if everybody started investing in property like you've done, then the banks would have no money, the country would have no money to spend, because everybody is actually earning money the right way. So it doesn't sit right with the government to want to do that, because then they would run out of money themselves. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Absolutely, yeah. And I suppose that's why I can see both sides of the fence post there. I think just going back to your point on teachers, absolutely, they are not the right people to do that. And I remember a lecturer when I did my masters before I sort of got into property education, and we were talking about this, and he was very open to the challenge about teachers or academia being very sort of research based and very sort of you are taught to pass an exam. You're not taught to apply that in the real world. And I think it's the same with understanding financial literacy. You are taught in things like accounting courses or even basic business study courses. I remember in school how to work out profit and loss at a very, very sort of basic level, but never actually taught to apply it in a real world scenario. And now with kids young ages, how do you apply that? You could apply it to pocket money. You could apply it to and we try to do it with my kids. If we give them pocket money and the pocket money is based on what they do. So the key thing we're trying to do is, and I'm going off on a little tangent here, but hear me out with this one. So if they do tasks, like if they do work around the house, clean their room, whatever, we pay them less than if they told us about what they learned at school. So we learned something as well. So adding value, we give them more to do that. And we're only talking like the equivalent of £1, £2 here.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the week, and they've still not got this, so my kids are quite young, I'm saying to them, right, I can give you your pocket money, £5, or I can give you half your pocket money and you can give me the rest. And in 2 weeks' time, I'll give you double what that is. Trying to teach them that sort of compound interest in effect, but they don't get it at my age. But we're trying to teach that type of thing. And I think the point I'm getting to is if you could teach kids at school age that simple approach to how does compounding work, how does interest work, how does the work that you do give you more money if you're adding more value. Those type of things are what's lacking, I think. And I going back to your point about teachers, absolutely not the right people to teach about these things. Not just because of what I said in terms of they're taught sort of the passing a test sort of thing, but like you said, they are swapping their time for money. So they're sort of contradicting themselves by teaching that, I suppose.
Yeah, it's, you mentioned business courses then, and my blood started to boil because my eldest son, he's 24 now. He left school and went to a college to do a business qualification, a business, I think it was a BTEC. And he told me very early on in that BTEC that it was a load of rubbish. It was absolutely pointless doing it. And I tried to turn him round and said, no, it's business. It's business course. It's going to be worth doing. You've got to stick at it. And he said, no, honestly, it's absolutely terrible. They don't know what they're doing. And eventually myself and his mother got called in to discuss his work. And what they were showing him was not a business BTEC at all. It was a customer service BTEC. They were teaching him how to do customer service to go into menial roles. There was nothing about business whatsoever. None of the people running it knew anything about business, knew anything about entrepreneurship. They were teaching people to go into customer service. And that seems to be what they want young people to do, to go into working in shops, to go into working on the phone, to go into answering complaints from people, because that's what the country needs. It needs drones. They don't want entrepreneurs. And it pissed me off that he was doing what was advertised as business, and it was nothing about business whatsoever. Really,
that was going to be my question. Sorry, Darren. It was advertised as business, but wasn't. Is that not false advertising?
That's what they classed as business, because they were teaching you to go into business as an employee, and it was disgusting.
Yeah. What does he do now? He's not done that by as he?
No. He's gone and he took some time out. He did a lot of work on computer stuff. Minecraft, funnily enough. He's done a lot of Minecraft builds, and he's built stuff that people buy online. So build it once, sell it forever. That's good. Small amounts. But now he's just finished his A-levels, which his results will be in August, and he's looking to go to university to do psychology.
That's another interesting topic, because me and my wife have conversations about this, about the value of university education these days.
Oh, now we're opening a...
Yes.
We're opening a can of worms.
I said earlier, I've done a bachelor's degree in sports science because I wanted to be a physiotherapist, and then decided I don't want to be a physiotherapist because unless you're really at the top of the game, you're not going to earn much money. I then spent some time just getting educated, just getting work experience and getting used to having a money and a car and all that nice stuff that comes with that. And then moved into sort of leadership roles in the corporate world that I'm in now. Realized that I was probably a little bit vulnerable and lacking some skills around things like accounting and HR and marketing and things like that. So I thought, right, what could I do that gives me exposure to those different areas of business without having to do individual degrees? So I did a general master's in business administration. Spent a lot of money doing that, and at the end of it, I was like, what have I actually learned? I've learned how to pass an exam. I've learned how to do a dissertation. So the sort of we don't argue, but the discussions, let's say, we have is around: do you need to go to university these days? What is the value of university, especially if you're where we are now in the Middle East? If we send our kids to university in England, we'd have to pay for that full education. There's no grants unless you got like bursaries for like nurses and things like that. So we have to pay for that. Then there's well, they have to be housed somewhere. Then there's they can't have full-time jobs, so you've got to subsidize them as well. So you accumulate all this money or cost to do a course. Does that actually return? What's that return on investment over the long term compared to not going to university, pursuing something that's a bit more vocational and business orientated? Is it there? I think where I've come to is if you pursue a career that requires the qualification, engineering,
like law,
doctor, things like that,
medical,
where the rate of increase in salary is like exponential to the time, then yes, I get that. Take my degree, for example. I did sports science to be a physiotherapist. I don't know about you, but I don't know any really well-paid physiotherapists other than those that work for like famous football clubs, for example. So
I don't even think they're that well paid.
No, you're probably right. Yeah, I've got no reason to disagree with that. So it was like, what is the value of university now compared to last time? I think there's less, certainly in the UK, maybe there's less importance put on university. If you take where we are in the Middle East, I had to have a degree in order to be able to work where I am in Oman. So I think there's still a rationale for being degree educated in certain parts of the world. But in terms of your career development, I don't think it's necessarily as important as it used to be, maybe even as little as 10, 15 years ago.
No, I think you're right.
Especially, sorry, Darren, with the onset of AI and everything that comes with that.
100%. 100%. I've got a degree in film and video. And just like you said with sports science, only the top, not even 1%, 0.0001% of people are making any money in that. It's very oversubscribed because everybody wants to do it. Oh, the dreams. I could work in Hollywood. I could make a feature film. I could be the next Steven Spielberg. Yeah, bullshit. You're not going to be doing that. Chances are, at best, you're going to be operating a camera on a Channel 5 TV show, if you're lucky. And even that's really competitive to get into. Most people are going to leave without doing anything remotely related to that field whatsoever, like I did. Totally pointless. But I did it from... I stayed at home during university, so I didn't have the cost of accommodation. So that's one thing. But my son's doing psychology. If he wants to work and become a psychologist, then you do need a qualification for that. So that's okay. And he's looking at a master's after that. He's worked out what he needs to do. So, as you say, some fields, it's absolutely fine. But for many, no, entrepreneurship is the way to go. Get out there and get experience. Get out there and start a business. But as you say, where do people go for that? Because it's not taught in school. There's no courses on entrepreneurship because nobody really knows how to teach it. The people who are teaching business courses haven't got a clue because they've never run a business in their life. So here's a question for you. What's the option? What do people do other than go to university?
I'm fortunate my children are young enough that I've got a lot of time to think about that. I think is it Daniel Priestley that talks about sort of
Daniel Priestley, yeah.
Yeah, he talks about go and just offer yourself up in like summer placements or work experience to go and just surround yourself with that environment. And I think if you put yourself out there and try and get that work experience, summer experience, evening experience, week, whatever that is, I think good entrepreneurs will see potential in people rather than this maybe old-fashioned way of I'll go to the job centre and see what's there and I'll just apply and wait. If you're not proactive enough in trying to find these opportunities, you won't find them. And it goes back to what you said earlier about making it big in Hollywood. Only the very few will actually succeed in these areas of entrepreneurship. I mean, I don't know a number, but look on Companies House, how many people have registered a business? How many of them are actually profitable?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I imagine it's quite a small number. So I think those that are proactive in like your son, he knows what he wants to do. He's got a plan by the sounds of it. He's going to follow a path. But he also sounds like, using that BTEC example, if you don't like it, he'll pivot and he'll go somewhere else. So I think those type of people will be successful. And maybe that's the skill set we need to instill in people, not just about the technical, academic, or the skills that do that, but maybe the softer, tactical, strategic, crisis management, conflict management type skills that help people not just learn how to do things, but learn how to deal with changes and deal with things like that. So entrepreneurship wise, I think there's so many facets to entrepreneurship. Are you the first step where you're sick of working for an employee and you're going to set up on your own and you're going to be a painter and decorator? Bad example, but you're going to do that. That is a form of entrepreneurship. You're having to go and learn how to get sales. You have to learn how to talk to customers. You have to learn how to do a good job, get some feedback, take invoices, manage your tax returns. That's all. That is the many hats of entrepreneurship. And then from there, what do you do? Well, then you employ other people in the team that can do more because your time's capacity. And then you get a bit more sort of offering more products. So I can paint your living room, but maybe I can do your decking outside, and maybe I can do your garden. It's all of a sudden you're packaging up these different services, and you're not becoming a painter and decorator. You're becoming a home improvements type solution, and then you're marketing that to the masses, and you're growing your. So you know what I mean? I think you can learn these things by doing, or you can learn these things by being around people, like the Daniel Priestley example, who he says, obviously Daniel Priestley or Simon Square, I don't know, but it's one of them saying just go and get the experience free of charge, offer yourself to people without payment, and if you're good, chances are you'll get a placement that's paid.
And funnily enough, we've got somebody actually starting with us in 2 weeks' time, who's done just that. He's 16. He wants to do work experience with us. We wouldn't normally take somebody that age. Normally, we take somebody at degree level. I don't know why. It's just the way it is. But the guy is so impressive. 16 and so impressive. And he's got so much experience already. And he's just coming with us for a week to learn what we do and to shadow us. I love that. He is going to be really successful. He's going to be successful. One of the things you talked about your children being quite young and not how do you learn entrepreneurship and how do you learn how to invest. But you also mentioned Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know if you've got this already or if you've done this, but obviously one of the things Robert Kiyosaki has done to help kids learn is the board game Cash Flow.
Yes.
I've got Cash Flow. You got it there somewhere? Have you got it there somewhere? Fantastic. Look at that. You got it right next to him. Spot on.
Now you might notice it's still in its wrapper.
It's still in its wrapper, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the original Cash Flow.
That's the original, but there's a kids version, isn't there?
There is a kids version, but I bought the kids version for my son a while back and they never played it. So I've got the adult version for him now, and we play that. So our youngest is now 21, still quite old, but we played Cash Flow, and they completely got it. They got it straight away. They got the whole buying doodads is bad for you. They got the whole investing low into stock and then selling when it's high. They got the whole buying property and earning passive income. And they all beat me at it straight away. First game, they all beat me at it. But the problem was, as soon as we'd finished, my youngest sat down and told me, Dad, I've got a problem. He's earning a lot of money. He works at Amazon as a supervisor in a warehouse. So he's earning over 30K a year. Dad, I've got a problem. At 21, I've got a lot of debt. Because he'd taken out a loan for something. He'd taken out a credit card and he had about 7.5, 8 grand's worth of debt that he was struggling to pay back. And we'd literally just gone through Cash Flow and he'd understood the importance of paying off the higher interest debt first before you start investing. But he didn't know what to do with it. And it's like, we've just gone through this. You've literally just done it. What should we do first? Oh, so this high interest one I've got from the credit card, get rid of that first. Get rid of that first. Pay off as much of that as you possibly can, as quickly as you can, to reduce that. That reduces the money you pay in the long term. And he hadn't applied it, even though he knew what to do. So I take it that Cash Flow is something you're going to be playing with your kids when you think they're ready.
100%, yeah. I mean, we're even we have the kids' version of Monopoly. So I'm trying to apply very simple things to them there. Say if you buy this, and every time someone goes around on your house, then you get money. And you only have to pay for it once, but every time someone lands on it, you get paid again and again and again.
Yeah.
So they're getting that. Yeah. Just going back to the example of your kid there. It feels like the penny drop or the light bulb moment of playing that game actually made him, like, I suppose, come out of his shell to say, Dad, I've got a problem. So as soon as I heard that, I thought that's the benefit straight away. Then this is the effects of that. And I suppose the only thing that I thought of when you said that is cash flow as a principle is fantastic, but it's still a game. And maybe that's the distinction that couldn't be made. That's a game. Once it's finished, it's put away. The distinction between game and real life was probably not there, but it sounds like you've actually gone through that process and done it. And yeah, I think it needs to be more out there. And it goes back to what we started talking about here: is that how do we get this message and this learning and this application into the younger minds? I think it's going to be an evergreen challenge, should we say? Because I think only the few will break through, and it's only people like you and I and people in our circles that will get that. But I think it's important that we keep sending the message, because what I'm not fearful of, but what I'm very mindful of, is not building wealth and just handing it over. Because what's that teaching people? There's having wealth, and there's keeping wealth, and there's building wealth, and I think they're all very different skill sets. And this goes back to, how do you introduce your kids to the art of managing money and the art of interest and all those skills we've been talking about? Yes, you want to build a financially secure, emotionally secure, physically secure environment, but you don't want to spoon feed them to the point where they don't understand the real world. And so I'm lucky that I've got time to think about that. But it sounds like you've already instilled some of that in your kids. But and I think most people don't. And I see it in this part of the world. There's a lot of family offices in the Middle East, and a lot of them now are probably second or third generation wealth. And you hear the stories of first generation makes it, second generation spends it, third generation's lost it, that type of thing. And I think that is really, really apparent. And if we're not careful, we'll end up building wealth, and then our grandchildren will waste it.
Yeah. I mean, that story I told, that was literally this year. It was a couple of months ago. And he wanted me to pay it off for him. He wanted me to pay the debt. And I could have done, but all that would have happened was it would have happened again. So I made him manage it himself and made him pay it himself. And as I'm aware, as I believe his brother and sister have told me, he doesn't tell me everything up front, because he hid this from me for a while, that he has now done that and he's paid it off, and he's okay. But it's interesting you mentioned Monopoly, because Monopoly was originally created as an anti-capitalist game.
All right.
It was created to show you how buying property and charging rent and becoming a capitalist would cause arguments, was a bad thing. Yet that's not why people play it, which is curious.
But it does cause arguments, Monopoly.
It does cause, exactly, it absolutely does. But people play it because they're, I want to make all this money and I want to bankrupt my family. But yeah, it was created as an anti-capitalist game, but it just didn't work like that. Whereas cash flow was created to show people how to invest and show people how to be financially literate. And I genuinely think every household should have cash flow. Every household should play it to understand it. But the problem comes in if you've got teachers don't know how to teach kids about money because they're not the best managers of money themselves. Parents, therefore, because they were taught by the teachers, are not the best managers of money, so they don't know how to teach the kids in the first place. You mentioned right at the beginning of the interview about you first thought, get a mortgage, pay it off as quickly as possible so that you're not doing that because you want to get rid of the debt. That's what most people think. Pay off your mortgage early. You see it on quiz shows where they say, oh, you're going to win £50,000. What do you do with the money? Oh, I can pay off my mortgage, or I can pay off my dad's mortgage. It's like, that is the worst possible thing you can do with that money.
Yeah.
Or when people win the lottery, they end up blowing it all on building a racetrack around their house or going on holiday. Or it happened just yesterday. I was listening to Heart Radio, and they do this 35 grand salary, so they pay you 35 grand if you phone in and you get the answer right. And it was, what you're going to do with this? He's going on holiday. It's, you can upgrade your plane, you can upgrade your hotel. Oh, fantastic. And they described it as life-changing money. 35 grand, life-changing money. It's not life-changing money. It's year-changing money at best. That person who won
if you
that,
invest it smartly, it could be life-changing.
It could be, but let's face it, it's not going to be.
Yeah.
That's going to be gone by December with that guy that won that money.
Yeah, of course.
When his first thought was turn left at the plane, and his second thought was upgrade the hotel he's got in Gran Canaria.
Yeah.
That's going to be gone by December. People do not have that mindset. That's why lottery winners go broke. It's absolutely criminal. And I don't know what the answer is to solve it, because I don't think people want to solve it.
I don't think society wants to solve it, and this goes back to what a theme that we've got through this interview is that only the few will succeed, and I think the wealth gap that's being created now is showing that gap is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and every time that, like, the middle class are no longer the middle class, are they? They're either getting to be the wealthy or they're actually falling back towards the working class as well. And I think you either have to differentiate yourself from other people to break free, or you just need to cut yourself adrift from normality and put yourself in uncomfortable positions and be different. Which differentiation, I suppose, it is. It's it's not something I worry about as much anymore, because I think I've broken that mindset now. I think I'm in a position where I will be able to teach my kids, and they'll be able to teach their kids. And I am seeing it with sort of my peers as well, where people are now asking me questions about how do you do this and why do you do that, and can you tell me how to do this, and what books you listen to, what podcasts you listen to, what's your thoughts on this property, what's your thoughts on this strategy. So I think that it resonates. The more you do it, I suppose you give off the energy and the aura for people to get intrigued. But even then, there's a difference between asking questions and taking action.
Yeah.
And I think that
is the key.
People can talk. Is it Chris Williamson? He talks in his podcast, Modern Wisdom. I've seen it a few times. Everyone talks about the thing, but no one actually does the thing.
And I've seen people make horrific mistakes over the years. I was at a toy convention many years ago, and there's a guy there wanted to buy a load of stuff, like 500-600 quid's worth of stuff, and he didn't have the money, and he was on the phone applying for a Wonga loan so that he could do it then and there. I thought, that is absolutely the worst thing you could possibly do in your life, to do that. Thankfully, he was turned down for it. I can't believe Wonga actually turned people down.
Well, probably a good thing.
Yeah, it was a very good thing. They've gone now. People who do that, it just shocks me, the bad financial decisions that people make. But, we could rant about bad financial decisions and the standard of the education system all day. But I think it's probably a good idea we talk about what you do for the last part of this interview and how you help people.
Yeah, sure. No, I just on that, it's a topic that I'm passionate about. This, so I like talking about it. So yeah, in terms of what I do, so I came to Oman, where I live now, in 2013 as part of a leadership program, 2-year leadership program. Part of that 2-year program was 6 months, go and test yourself in another part of the company, another part of the world. And about 4 months into it, they offered me a full-time job. It took me 10 seconds to say yes, because I had no children, I had no partner, I was on my own, I had a suitcase, and I thought, well, this is much better than commuting between Manchester and Crewe every day. I may as well sit in the sun, tax-free, short hop from Dubai. So I did that. And then so I started accumulating this sort of extra money and stuff like that. And again, this learning, etc., got me into that. And then obviously I met my now wife. We've got children. And then your perspective change once you have children about, right, how can I create these financial stabilities, social stability, emotional stability? So we were doing all that. Property that we talked about, we started investing in that just before we had children, and then just this, as I said earlier, this looking around, seeing why and how people can do this much quicker than I'm doing it. Got myself educated, went from 2 streams of income in 3 years to 15 streams of income in 2 more years.
15.
Yeah, just by applying sort of logic and learning, etc. And then once I'd finished Simon Zucchi's course, which was I got a lot of value out of it, as I've just explained, I then said, well, where else can I get this learning from? So I was hosting a networking event in Dubai every month, which was for property investors, and we had a mix of people interested in investing right through to experienced investors. But every break, every end of each one, I'd always have people coming to me saying, do you know someone who? And it's like, do you know a mortgage broker? Do you know a solicitor? Do you know someone who can do estate planning? And I was thinking, why are people not able to access something as easy as this? So that was one thing that stuck in my mind. Doing Simon's course was fantastic, as I said, but 99% of the people doing the course are UK based. So there was no real focus on expat investing. So if you focus, there was lack of community, there was lack of sort of focus on expats, and there was lack of sort of resources available for expats. And that's why I came up with the model of expat property people, which is an online community that I established late last year. And the aim really is to connect expats, but overseas investors with the resources and the service providers that can help them invest in the UK property market. So the resources include my own podcast. We have monthly online networking events. We have free resources. We have webinars. We provide free access to people, just to help people, one, be around people, because I think there's a key thing around the community we talked about. So be part of a community where you're around like-minded people, which is what we talked about at the start. Being around community builds knowledge, and with knowledge comes confidence. Once you understand the knowledge, you understand where you need support. So where can you leverage that support? And then all those things together with the confidence gives you the mindset. And that really is the formula for successful expat investing, I found. So that's the ecosystem we're building. And what we're trying to provide is not everything to everyone, but trying to understand there are expat investors who want to do it themselves and want to go and own their own property and build their own portfolios. You've got people who understand the wealth building potential of property, but don't want to get involved in owning property, just want to invest their money, get good returns. Yeah. And you've got a population in the middle who don't know what they want to be and maybe just looking for some mentoring or some guidance and support. So we try and cater for all those pockets. Now, my going back to the start, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people who know more about property than I do. Likewise, there's probably hundreds and thousands of people who don't know as much as I do. I'm not marketing myself as the guru or the expert. I'm marketing myself as the person who can connect the expat with the service provider and provide, for what it's worth, my view on how you invest as a UK expat into the UK property market. And that's the sort of mantra we're trying to build. We're trying to help expats build wealth through UK property whilst remaining an expat. Because I think what a lot of people, and this is a soundbite I've created myself and speak to people, the UK is a great place to invest, but not everyone wants to use the UK as a good place to live. So this is expats investing in the UK to maintain their expat lifestyle. So in a nutshell, that's what we do.
So is it purely for people living in the Middle East that you're looking for this? You're not looking for anybody in the UK to get involved virtually with it?
Well, I mean, the avatar is the expat investor, because we're talking about things like the extra layers of compliance that you need to get loans, for example, the proof of funds, source of funds, etc. But likewise, we've had people join our networking events because they want to talk about property, and a lot of the service providers, like some of our mortgage advisors, I always say advisor rather than broker. They advise on mortgages. Yeah. They are UK based people. They just have expat clients, so they understand the expat compliance. But there was a guy on this month's who was from Manchester, and he was speaking to the mortgage advisor, and they're now going to go and talk because he provides UK services. So yes, the avatar is expats, but anyone from the UK who wants to talk about property, who wants to just be around like-minded people, who wants a free online event, don't have to leave your home. You can join us, are free to join. Likewise, a podcast is property general, but it's tagged expat property podcast. And the resources are just resources generally about mindset around investing. So like we say, think like an investor, not like a homeowner. Doesn't matter if you're an expat or UK based. That's a good mantra to have as part of an investor. So it's not it's badged as expat property people, but it's really property people.
Yeah. And you say you got 14 streams of revenue. Is that all through property?
Yeah, HMOs, single lets, it's probably up to 16 now. There's a mix. So I have properties in St Andrews, up in Scotland. I have property in Manchester. I've converted my what's my workplace pension to a SAS, and I invest that in S&P 500 type stocks just to keep that sort of slow and steady a view of pensions. So. Yeah, I mean it's a soundbite, but the piece there is I went from two properties, two streams of income in 3 years with no support, got educated, built a network, built a community, and accelerated that by using different strategies and different approaches to where it is now. And if we were in the UK, it would probably sustain my family. It'd probably be a good income for the family. Fortunately, when you live in the Middle East, we have these golden handcuffs, and schooling, for example, housing, everything's just more expensive in the Middle East. So I've got a few years yet before I can say I properties keeping my expat lifestyle. But we're well on course for doing that in the next couple of years.
And I take it some of these properties then you've actually never visited.
Most I've never visited.
Most never visited.
No, let me not sensationalize that. So there's one property I've never visited. I drive past most of them just because I'm curious, but I never actually go in them because they're tenanted. And two of them I saw when we were back to brick. I've never actually been in them since they've been. So I don't, and that's the. This sounds controversial. I think expat investors make better investors because they're not emotionally tied to a property. They see numbers. They can't get involved. They have to use leverage. They have to use service providers. They have to use other people. And that's one of our key mantras with expat property people is you have to learn the art of leverage, master the art of leverage, because you can't be there. You have to get people to do viewings. You have to rely on builders. You have to rely on letting agents. You have to rely on people who are going to look after your interest. And that all comes with building that community and building that resilience and mindset.
And that's the key, isn't it? It's not looking at it as most people would look at it and buying a home. You're not.
Yep.
You're not going to live there. It's not your home. You're buying an investment. You're putting money down that's going to make profit. So what that investment looks like, what the property looks like, or it's decorated like, is completely irrelevant to you. It doesn't matter.
100%.
So long as it works on paper and the numbers work.
And we have to be careful because landlords get a bad name, don't they? So yes, you have to take the emotion out of it, but that doesn't mean you have to be emotionless. So you have to provide a compliant property that is safe, is homely enough that people see it as a home, and is a fair market rent. I think if you apply that logic, then you are technically a good landlord. Like most industries, it's the rogue few that tarred everyone else with a bad name. So yeah, as I say, I think if you get the right community, you get the right people, you're right. You have a moral compass that provides the right home, then you can be a successful expat investor. Just don't get emotionally attached to property.
Do you have a favourite stream of property investing, of revenue?
Boring, vanilla, buy-to-lets.
Buy-to-lets. That's
Buy-to-let. I've got HMOs. I've got buy-to-lets.
HMOs are more intensive in time and updates.
Yeah, they're good for cash flow, but they're very noisy. I take a view that the UK is an island. The population's only going one way. The housing crisis has got no sight, despite the government's pledges to build 1.5 million extra homes. They're not going to do that. Every government for the last 20 odd years has said that. It's a good manifesto bullet point. It's not really a realism. So there's always going to be a need for houses. Is there always going to be a need for service accommodation, Airbnb? Is there always going to be a need for HMOs? All these things are susceptible to regulation change. But what's not susceptible, should I say, to regulation changes, people are always going to need a 2 and 3 bedroom house because they're just the demand for houses. So as long as you can make that business model work and understand profit and loss, going back to what we said about understanding that being a good tenant means and marketing your properties correctly, I think you'll always see good returns on a monthly basis on a recurring period, and B, the capital appreciation that comes with basic supply and demand economics.
I think that the only difficulty there, of course, with the single lets is what the government, the previous government, the Tories, and what Labour's doing now is making it more and more difficult for landlords.
Yes.
So you cannot now take the interest payments on the mortgage off your revenue. You're paying tax on that, even though it's not profit, which just I've never really understood. They're making it more difficult to get rid of tenants with the Tenants' Rights Bill. Everything is going to make it more difficult for the landlords. But what that's going to mean is the rents are going to go up, which is going to make it more difficult for the tenants, and the tenants are going to blame the landlords. The landlord's putting my rent up. He's got to. The figures don't stack up either. Blame the government. That's what's happening. But as you say, the demand for property is never going to change. No. It's only going to get more and more, which is going to push the rents up even higher, which is great for you.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I'm very much a data-driven person. I think it just comes back from this thirst for learning, and I think George Soros' theory of reflexivity, I think it is, talks about that it's not data that drives the market; it's the headlines. But if you follow the data, it does show you immigration's going up, net immigration's going up, housing stock is increasing. Housing demand is increasing, housing stock's reducing. The planning system in the UK is broken, and it's going to take years to resolve. And it just leads to, like you say, they keep applying costs, they keep applying demand. Landlords are not going to absorb that themselves. Some of them might, just because they're good people, not increase the rents too much. But ultimately, the tenant pays. I read a stat this morning that the percentage of people who now rent in the UK is at the highest level it's ever been.
Really?
I can't remember the exact number, but there seems to be a shift in whether it's just forced because they can't afford it, or whether it's just a different sort of societal change that owning a home doesn't seem to be top of people's agenda anymore. Renting just seems to be something that is more apparent now. As I say, I read it this morning, so I don't actually know the full data. It's just a stat that stuck out to me. So, but I think people are renting more because they're finding it more and more difficult to get on that property ladder, aren't they? That first step. And
the thing is, they blame landlords for that. Oh, it's the landlords coming in and outbidding us for properties. That's not how it works.
No.
A landlord is not going to outbid you for a property. No. They cannot pay more than somebody who's a first-time buyer because they need to make a profit. That is not the reason that it's happening. Yeah. But they blame the landlords. It frustrates me. It shouldn't.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, they need to build more homes, and in order to build more homes, they need to have the right skills and trades to be able to do that. So they need to invest in vocational skills and trade skills.
Yeah, which is another issue in the country, isn't it?
Yeah. And they need to fix the planning system, and they need to provide some support to house builders to do that, and the private rental sector as well, because there's some very good developers out there who are smaller developers who can help. There's lots of office facilities and assets that are sat empty that could be converted to housing. There's lots of things that the government could do, low hanging fruit things, I think, without getting too political, that could help meet that 1.5 million house target that they can do. But for some reason, it's beyond the scope. And I think this is just part of party politics, isn't it? This is just what political parties do. They don't have long enough in term to make the impact they need.
It's a vote winner. It's a vote winner to hit landlords.
Yeah, exactly.
Because nobody likes landlords. They're rich. They're fat cats. They're living off people's misery.
Yeah.
Let's punish them, and then people will vote for you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we all we can do is be good landlords and be good people, and try and just be good people in the world, and try and look after your own interest and your own family. And if that's by being a landlord and an investor, then you just be the best person you can while doing that.
Well, that was a cheery end to the podcast, wasn't it? So, as a final point, anyone that's listening to this thinking, I'd love to get in touch with you, or if they're in the Middle East and they'd love to get involved with your network, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you? Yeah,
so I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Just type in Steve Cowgill. I've got a unique surname, so that's Cowgill. There's not many of us, so that's the best way in terms of social media. You can get me expatpropertypeople.com, which is the main website. And from there, you'll see various ways to get in touch with me. And I've got my podcast, which is Expat Property Podcast, which is on all the good platforms, as is your good podcast.
All right. Thanks very much, Steve. I've loved having you as a guest. Cheers.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot.